and welcome to Alternate Ending, where we are still discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I am your host for this week, Brennan Klein. You might know me from doing this a lot. Anyway, I am here also with people you have heard before. I am here with Cameron Shaw. Hello, Cameron. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. It's nice to meet both of you in person. Or not in
Oh,
person,
yes.
virtually
Well,
in person.
virtually in person. Yes. No, I am honored to be here with both of you, but also I understand that I have to thank you for bringing Zombies 2 to Tim's attention and changing our lives completely. So thank you so
Yes.
much for that.
Yes, you're very welcome, or perhaps not welcome, as the case may be. I was treated to watching that without having seen Zombies 1. Um, but
Yeah,
some
that's I would argue a mistake.
maybe a mistake, and yet also I felt like I caught up pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot of plot involved. So yeah.
No, not so much. But I have more I can say about Zombies, and you will hear it on Bride of Alternate Ending. But we also here have Andrew Milne. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm good, thanks, Brennan. It's been an absolutely miserable day
Oh,
here in
Oh
Scotland.
no.
It's just grey and dreich all day. So I've been indoors the whole time. I've written about 2,000 words and I am full of coffee and carbohydrates. So I am ready to go.
Hell yeah.
Like it's
great.
it's a very energized 8 p.m. over here.
Nice.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad to hear it because yeah, with your time zone, because we have you in Scotland, we have Gavin in France. I always worry we're tuckering you guys out.
That's it.
Um,
I think if we took the average of our longitude and latitude of everyone present here today, we would probably be somewhere around Wisconsin. So we're still true to the spirit of the
we
podcast.
can still put local on our taxes for the. But we three have gathered here today. We are going to talk about incomplete franchises, which I'm very excited about. But first, we're going to do the movie roundtable. I understand the two of you have each brought a movie to talk about. I'm curious, Andrew, what is your movie?
Okay, so I've actually seen a bunch of stuff since we talked last, Brennan, I think it was about a month ago.
Mhm.
So I've seen a few obscure things that I was curious to talk about. So I had kind of the pick of the litter here. But the movie that I want to talk about today is it's a curious object. It's a film called Despiser from 2003. So how this happened, um, this was a conversation I had with another member of the AE community. Um, just kind of by happenstance, they put me onto the oeuvre of one Philip J. Cook. And Philip J. Cook is an odd duck. He's, I believe, a Virginia-based filmmaker. I think, the head of Eagle Films, as far as I'm aware. So he's completely outside of the sort of Hollywood ecosystem or any kind of mainstream ecosystem. Um, got to start making micro-budget sci-fi films back in the late 80s when he was in his early 20s. And as far as I'm aware, Eagle Films sort of have been a provider of sort of videography services to local businesses in Virginia for the last 3 decades. So they've been around for a while. But my understanding is that Philip J. Cook is he's kind of been champing at the bit the whole time that he's been working his career to make these kind of epic sci-fi fantasy visionary projects, you might say. And his most popular one, it would be a stretch to call it a cult classic. It's not so much a cult, so much like maybe a fan club is the better term for it. It was made in 2003 for about $35,000, and the um the plot. Okay, we're gonna have to dig into this one a little bit. So it concerns a gentleman who's a graphic designer for who works by day for consultancy projects. He quits his job. His wife divorces him, and at a low point in his life, he crashes his car and inadvertently falls into purgatory, where he is conscripted into a militia who are fighting against a demon army who have colonized Purgatory after they landed here during the Tunguska event in 1908.
Ah,
Of course, that actually makes a lot of sense.
yeah. I've really been waiting for them to make a movie about that. It seems ripe
Wait,
for.
so yeah, the $35,000, do we get to see the demon army? Are they invisible or are they just people in hats? Like what do they look like?
Yes, and this is kind of the USP. So the whole film is done with early, like, fifth generation Sega Saturn PlayStation sort of FMV graphical
Oh
effects.
dear.
Oh.
And here's the thing, I think it kind of works. It seems insane to say, because to the extent that people are aware of this film, a lot of people consider it to be so bad it's good. But there's also a contingent of people who are kind of legitimately into it. Like, this is actually an aesthetic.
Sure.
It's one of these things where I was watching it and I kind of had my media studies hat on. Like, what constitutes good visuals anyway? And the whole thing is, like, none of this film has, like, fidelity. It's all shot on video. It's all done with non-professional actors, and all the effects are these incredibly low poly, low resolution um, demon designs. Fire that's visibly, like, pixelated. Um, Things that would even be props in, like, even a moderately budgeted movie, like cars and bridges and buildings, are built out of CGI effects. And some people would consider that a flaw. But if you have, like, if you're someone like me who grew up in the 90s and you have nostalgia for FMV cutscenes, and you have a sort of fondness for that aesthetic. The thing is, because the film is set in purgatory for most of it, and there's this whole um, is this real? Is this not real? Am I just having a sort of out of body, dissociative experience? The low fidelity of the visual effects kind of contribute to the surrealism of it.
Sure.
So to me, it doesn't feel like a flaw. It feels like kind of this odd piece of outsider art.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I was into it. I thought there was a bunch of really striking imagery in this. Like, there's um, all these images of ICBMs sticking out of these infernal planes, um, these alien life forms, like, inhabiting these gothic fortresses. It's all scored to this kind of techno that's infused with Gregorian chant. It's kind of cool.
I mean, who's to say that's not what Purgatory is actually like? And that, did you say 1993 is the year this was made?
2003.
Oh, 2003. Well, gosh, even more so.
Yeah.
Like maybe pre-HD 2003 video is what Purgatory looks
Mm,
like.
Yeah, Purgatory to
maybe.
me does look like The Rock in The Mummy 2 at the very end, where he's like a crab monster or whatever the fuck. I guess he's probably a scorpion. um,
Oh yeah.
so
Like that, but if it wasn't a mistake.
okay, I mean, as if it's intentional, I mean, obviously you're working within your boundaries. Look, I haven't seen this. I haven't seen a single still frame of it. Maybe I will look up what I can see. You said it's called Despiser.
Despiser. Yeah.
Okay, because like
I-
if it feels like holistic or consistent, that could be something. Although I'm seeing, there is a
Oh,
crab
wow.
spider monster with slug eyes that I'm looking at that looks,
Yeah. Amazing.
yeah. I don't know. I'd have to sit down with this movie and make a final decision. But I'm not being sold.
I don't think I could in good conscience recommend it. I only
Okay.
know that with my particular kind of diseased brain, kind of enjoyed it.
I think that's
But
important, and I think that people need to know.
I think
yeah.
we all have movies that you know there's really only one person in your life that you could possibly see this movie with who would also appreciate it. I feel like
Mm,
perhaps this is a movie like that for me, at least. Because I think I might
yeah.
appreciate it too. It looks very cheesy.
Yeah, and does it make you want to?
It's the cheesiest thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Does it make you want to dive further into the cook oeuvre? Is there an oeuvre?
there is somewhat. Yeah, there's his other big one is Invader, and I believe oh god, I forget the name of it. Otherworld, Outer World. I think it's Outer World
Okay.
from 1988. That was his first
Hmm.
one, which is actually made using miniatures and green screen and such like. But um, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
That sounds really cool, actually. Okay. Well, you've given us a lot to chew on. Cameron, what are you bringing to the table today?
I'm not sure I could do more of a hard right turn if I tried. I saw a few days ago the film out of Cannes. I believe it was Cannes last year, 2024, that called Eephus, and it is an American baseball movie that I 100% when I went into this movie thought I was going to see a documentary. And because it really is kind of portrayed in descriptions of it as a documentary. In fact, it's not even about something that really happened. After I saw it, I thought, oh, it was based on a true story. Nope, it's just something that was written about and really kind of feels true. So the
Huh.
plot, the plot of this movie is in as much as there is a plot, there is a beloved community baseball field that is going to be destroyed in the interest of putting up a new school. And the people who have played on these community baseball teams, one is like sponsored by the local hardware store, and the other just has, I honestly don't remember the name of the team, but has a name. It's not sponsored by anybody. They have this kind of pickup baseball league and have been playing there for decades. And the movie follows the last game that they play at this baseball field before it's torn down. And it's very sweet. I felt like it had some pacing issues and that maybe the script was a little murky. Um, because there were times when I kind of felt like I lost the thread of what was actually happening in the game. But it does that in favor of really delving into the characters and kind of painting these characters without a ton of exposition, if that makes any sense. Like you kind of get to know who all these characters are by how they approach the game and the things that happen surrounding it. Um, and it's very charming. I think that's the best word I can use for it. I After I saw it, went and looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and there it has a 100% Rotten Tomatoes rating, which I found kind of shocking because I would have thought that maybe some people had greater problems with how it was put together, like I did. But I think in general, people are responding to it as this, oh, isn't this refreshing? This is a very non-commercial first-time director, like mostly non-actors or unknown actors. There's one guy who's on some TV show that I would know if I watched TV shows, um, popular TV shows. I think he might be on like Severance or something like that. But yeah, I think it's really a movie for baseball fans, but it also the feeling that it evoked in me is like they don't want this baseball game to end, so they kind of stretch it into the waning light hours. Then they're playing in the absolute dark, and it kind of made me feel like it's that slumber party where you don't want to go to sleep and you're just talking to your best friends all night, or that last day of summer that you don't go to bed because you don't want the next day to happen. Like
Oh.
it's a kind of a nostalgic tour de force, I would say.
I like the sound. I'm just looking up on Wikipedia right now, and apparently the director cites Goodbye Dragon Inn as a point of reference. So that kind of has me interested right there.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I don't know that you necessarily need to rush out and see it on the big screen, but I would also love it to make money. So
Mhm.
there
Hmm.
is that, I recommend it for that reason. And I should say an Eephus pitch, it's a kind of pitch that's I believe it's a very slow curveball that goes so slowly you can't pinpoint that it's even moving. Like it almost looks, the way they describe it in the film is that it looks like the ball has stopped midair. So it
Oh.
thwarts people. And it does have a very famous baseball player, Bill Spaceman Lee, is in it. He kind of shows up as this random character to pitch an inning or two and then leaves. But he's a famous pitcher who I believe was on the Red Sox, who is famous for this particular pitch. And so we get kind of the description of the pitch when he shows up. And yeah, it also has cameos by Fred Wiseman, which is.
Yeah, I saw him on the cast list. I was going to ask. That is wild.
And it is that Fred Wiseman. Like, it's not some other guy.
Documentarian.
Yeah.
And I was trying to look up if there were TV people. I see two people with links on their Wikipedia pages, and they're both from Uncut Gems. So there's like a little bit of a indie thing going on.
Keith William Richards is the main one. I feel like he's on a show, and maybe I might be wrong about this. I had never seen him. I haven't seen Uncut Gems. But it looks like, yeah, I'm wrong. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Lead you astray. But anyway, it was fun. I saw it, like I was saying about Andrew's movie. I saw it with the perfect person who appreciates baseball. So yeah, there you go.
I was going to ask, actually, Cameron, like you said, this is the perfect movie for baseball fans. Are you a baseball fan to any extent?
I am a baseball fan. I am a San Francisco Giants fan. And I would not call myself like a hardcore baseball fan, but I have my team and I love my team. If the World Series is between perhaps the Dodgers and the Yankees, let's say, I will not watch the World Series. So, I have the teams that I hate as well. So, yeah.
Well, I will put this out there. The only baseball game I've ever seen played live was in San Francisco. So there you go.
Was it at our new stadium or was it at Candlestick back in the day?
This was in 2007.
Okay, so that's the current stadium.
That's super cool, and it sounds like the Eephus pitch is a metaphor for what the movie is doing as a narrative.
I like that. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but sure. Yeah, I mean, the life of this baseball field stops while this game is going on, and then you kind of see in the background construction starting to happen before it gets dark. Yeah,
that's fascinating. Okay, so you two have inspired me. I don't know. I had written down. So I had a couple movies and I wasn't really sure which one I wanted to talk about. I wrote down that I want to talk about the newest one because usually that's my deal, my tiebreaker. Because I feel like it's new, people are gonna want to talk about it. But it's the movie Locked, where Bill Skarsgård's locked in a car. I don't know if people want to hear about it. Oh, you do?
I very much do.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
I'm curious about this.
Big fan of him, period.
Oh my goodness, yes. I love Bill Skarsgård. I have been an extreme proponent of I try to go see all the movies where you get to see his face because I want them to let him not be a monster in things. Like I don't need to see him under 80 pounds of latex because I just like him in general since Barbarian.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Locked he plays a kind of petty thief. He's got a complicated relationship with his daughter who he loves but continuously fails for reasons that are sometimes out of his control but are mostly probably a little bit in his control. And basically he needs to make a bunch of money very quickly in order to pay off a mechanic bill so he can get back on the street doing DoorDash or whatever his attempt to make money is. And to do so, he's decided to boost a car, and the car that he chooses is this fancy, big kind of SUV luxury car. He finds himself locked in, and it turns out that the owner of this car has tricked it out to be like basically a jigsaw trap. He can like electrically zap him from the seats like he's watching The Tingler.
Oh, fun.
The man who owns the car can control the heat and the sound, and he can control everything, and Bill Skarsgård's just trapped there. And the man's doing this as some sort of like he's railing against it's a very Jigsaw thing. It's that he is dying of cancer and he is railing against the criminal underbelly of the town. None of this is like reveals or spoilers, so I'm just gonna talk a little bit about it. But yeah, so like he has a daughter who was killed in this like random crime incident, and he's just kind of acting out as he dies. And this man is played by Anthony Hopkins, who you do hear from time. You mostly hear him over the phone on the like Bluetooth in the car. Although you do get to see a bit of Anthony Hopkins in the movie. He did show up to set one day.
Wow. Wow.
And I gotta say, it's an okay movie. It's like a 6 out of 10. They don't go as hard as they could have in the premise. But Anthony Hopkins is having a hell of a lot of fun in this movie, which is not something I've come to expect from latter era Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah. Wow. That I feel like it's worth seeing just for that, because you gotta appreciate an old, extremely talented actor just doing whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, he's just really kind of opening it up and just, he's basically playing a character who is a doddering old man, but is playing up that element of himself to specifically to bother Bill Skarsgård. Where he's like not getting to the point, but basically so he can just torture Bill Skarsgård more because he knows that he has a captive audience, quite literally. There are parts where the script starts to decide that it should have some ideas and it shouldn't. The ideas it has are not good. But it's a pretty solid kind of meat and potatoes, like single location for the most part thriller. And I was pretty moved by a scene towards the end, and I was just like, you know what, it was a nice time. I think it's two solid actors. I don't know that Bill Skarsgård is doing very much that you are unaware is in his toolkit. But he's a presence that I enjoy, and Anthony Hopkins I really thought kind of sold the movie for me. So if you're curious, I think you can check it out and have a totally okay time.
I guess my thing with Anthony Hopkins in his, like, the last decade of his career, my two main reference points for him are Father and Transformers: The Last Knight. And if we can get like a performance that sort of synthesizes those two, then I'm sort of sold.
Yeah.
And maybe it does. I can't say I have seen Transformers: The Last Knight. But and my favorite thing about The Father is him winning the Oscar and not being there and causing this enormous catastrophe because they thought they were giving it to Chadwick Boseman. But I don't think that has much to do with his performance in Locked. I just think about that all the time.
What I love about Bill Skarsgård is that his older brother is Alexander Skarsgård, who, at least in his early career, was like sexy guy. That was his thing. And Bill Skarsgård is kind of just like, no, I'm going to be a monster most of the time. Like, did not follow that path at all. And I love that.
No, not at all. And he can do sexy guy. That's what The Crow did for like 70% of its runtime, where it's like, let's just pop that shirt off. See what The Crow's like if he has 18 abs.
I think since The Northman, Alexander Skarsgård has leveraged his upper body for purposes of intimidation rather than lust.
I think that's
maybe sort of that opens a new sort of avenue for his brothers to occupy.
Yeah, he's sending the ladder down so they can follow him into sex symbol territory. Or I guess they're just reversing. But anyway, Locked. It was fine. But we are talking about incomplete franchises. This is not connected to anything going on in the world. Because, when we have the topic, sometimes it's relevant. Like when we Cameron, you were on the romance movies episode, which was tied into Valentine's Day. This one, I was just spitballing some ideas, and this is one that felt like it clicked with the three of us. But the reason I thought about it was I watched the movie The Darkest Minds, a young adult adaptation from 2018. That basically ends with a setup of like, it's going to be Hunger Games next time. And they did not make enough money to make that second movie happen. But in the process, released Harris Dickinson upon the world because he played the like sexy kind of Gale love interest in the movie. So you don't get Triangle of Sadness if Darkest Minds 2 and 3 happened, probably.
I think for this topic specifically, late 2000s, 2010s YA adaptations are a particularly like fertile area of inquiry.
Oh yeah, it is a graveyard. But let's start in this mode. I want to split it into two halves. In this half, I would really love to talk about ones that did not get completed and probably should not have. Like ones that if they had kept going, you probably wouldn't have seen it, probably would have been bad. Darkest Minds is maybe one of them. Who knows? We'll never know. But Cameron, you were telling me a little bit off mic about how do you think? Do you have anything to bring for this? Like, how was your approach to this topic?
Sure. So when you broached the topic, I thought, oh, I have a lot to say about that. And then it turns out that I'm really only have extreme feelings about two franchises,
Ooh.
which do not fall into this category that you just mentioned. So I'll save them. So I have experienced a lot that I see the first movie of a franchise and then like I enjoy it, but it's not quite good enough to get me back in for the second. And then I tend to fall off with it. Like an example of that would be the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies.
Sure.
I think that's a fine choice.
Yeah, where I saw the first one, it was super fun, and then the second one just looked like absolute like pond scum. So I not, not to be judgy or anything, but
The second Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes is one of the only times I've ever fallen asleep in a theater,
Wow.
for whatever that's worth.
that's
Historic.
worth a lot, I think. Yeah. So I found that a lot of the, I kind of went poking around on the internet to see what I was not coming up with off the top of my head. And a lot of these franchises I can't really speak to because I didn't see more than the first movie. As far as being okay with it not being finished, I would say The Last Airbender really jumped out at me, like that movie.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure they expected it to be like at least a trilogy. And I was not a fan. I didn't have any experience with the cartoon or animated series, so I didn't know what to expect. I saw this in Chicago. I believe I saw it in 3D because
Ooh.
and like at a midnight release because I went with a friend who was very excited about it. It was not shot to be in 3D. Like 3D sucks up a decent amount of light in the printing process, and this was the darkest comic booky movie I think I've ever, like it was murky.
Yeah, because it's I saw it in 2D and it's already incredibly dark.
Dark, yeah. I mean, you could barely see anything, and I thought it was bad. So that's the main one that I was like, yeah, don't need to follow through with that.
And you are correct. I'm someone who's seen the entire series and certainly loved it at the time. Don't have a super strong memory of it anymore. I was a kid, but was very furious about the movie. But the 3D, I don't know if it was designed to be 3D or if it was post converted or what. But maybe it was because this came out the year after Avatar, so that's when everything had to be 3D all of a sudden.
I think it was converted in post, if I recall correctly, because I feel like I went down that rabbit hole at the time in 2009 or whenever this was. Like, I remember thinking that was not supposed to be in 3D, and they forced the issue because of Avatar and other things that were coming out, Coraline, things that came out around the same time. Yeah.
oh yeah, like litigating the difference between shot natively in 3D and post-converted into 3D. Like it feels like we've sort of forgotten this era at this point, but that was a huge deal for a few years. Like that was kind of the thing that people would want to litigate before they went into seeing a 3D film.
Yeah, we've moved on to motion smoothing as our big kind of torches and pitchforks thing.
Yeah.
So vis-a-vis The Last Airbender, I have a bit of a backstory here.
Ooh.
So I was not I've never seen the cartoon. I've seen like 1.5 episodes of the cartoon. However, around between the years of about 2008 and 2010, I was an administrator on a Pro Boards forum dedicated to live action adaptations of anime.
Oh my goodness.
And
how specific.
So
I didn't realize
yes,
we were in the company of nobility.
So in the course of about 15 months, we had the 1-2 punch of both Dragon Ball Evolution and The Last Airbender coming out.
Woof.
Which pretty much just folded the entire community.
Yeah.
Like we didn't survive that.
What was it just that you were all very depressed at how things were going, or was it like some people love these movies and there was a schism?
No, there was no schism. It was very it was unanimous. I think the fact was we were all getting older. Like the tour started when we were all like teenagers.
Hmm.
A bunch of us were sort of getting into our 20s by the time the films came out. But like if they had been better, if they had actually like inspired any kind of like loyalty from the people who'd seen them, those communities might actually have survived. So I am going to point to those two movies specifically, Dragon Ball Evolution and The Last Airbender, as films that have specifically diminished my social life.
Wow.
So both films that failed to garner sequels. So yeah, that's a very old chip on my shoulder.
Yeah, well, okay, so it's very worthy of this inclusion here. But do
Yeah.
you have
Oh,
other ones you want to
100%.
bring to the table?
I have a few for yeah, for films that don't deserve to be continued. I know the one that you specifically called out, Brennan, in your note proposing this topic was the Divergent movies.
Well, that one was just it did not finish. I have no opinion. I've
Yeah.
never seen them, but yeah, sorry, keep going.
I have opinions.
I have seen them. I've
Yeah.
seen all three.
Me too.
Because I am addicted to Schadenfreude. Is the thing.
Ah.
I haven't read the books. The only Veronica Roth book I've actually read was it was a not it was a non-Divergent book. It was Carve the Mark, which was her sort of follow-up to that series, which absolutely sank like a stone as far as I'm able to tell. But the movies themselves, this YA hanger-on series that was sort of riding the coattails of the Hunger Games craze about people who are kind of separated into factions in this post-apocalyptic society that basically correspond to modern-day high school cliques. And it turns out to be the sort of like the vestiges of this eugenics program that started in Chicago before bombs fell or something like that.
Something like
I don't
that.
remember.
Yeah.
It was incredibly stupid, but the way it ended, the third book in the series that Veronica Roth wrote was going to be split into two entries, Allegiant and Ascendant. After Allegiant underperformed, it was announced that Ascendant was going to be released as a direct-to-TV film, and they didn't even manage to get that off the ground.
Well, because Shailene Woodley put her foot down. She was like, "Fuck
Yeah.
no."
Yeah. And God bless her for it. Like,
100%. Like,
Yeah.
and just the richness of the Schadenfreude in that series was just, it was delectable, which it is gratifying because those films are terrible. Like, just to be clear.
Oh,
they are terrible. I've read two of those books. I read Divergent and whatever the second one's called.
Insurgent.
Insurgent, thank you. Um, and then kind of like what I was saying before, did not care enough to read to finish. And I feel like society as a whole did not care enough to finish that. Divergent, the book starts out fine. You know, it is one of these stupid, like The Chosen One in a dystopian future books. But yeah, it was fine as a book. And then, you know, knowing I was reading a YA novel, I was okay with it. And then, the movies were really just not great. Yeah.
And isn't the overqualified adult in those? Is that Kate Winslet in the Divergent ones? Am I remembering that?
I think so.
Kate Winslet is in there.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Also, Jeff Daniels shows up at one point as well.
What
I
a
do not remember
glorious
that.
time at this in the cinema.
Yeah.
I will throw one out there. My personal movie Schadenfreude is Universal's Dark Universe, which is their attempt to MCUify the Universal monsters that they believe in so hard and has never worked. Sorry, Cameron, you have something?
No, isn't this kind of still in progress? Am I mistaken about that?
So it's always a little hard to tell.
Okay, fair enough.
But I believe it started with Dracula Untold, the Luke Evans movie that just kind of wet farted its way out of existence.
Dracula Untold has a post-credit scene. It's Charles Dance announcing the game and let the games begin, or, or something like that.
Oh, thank goodness.
And this is entirely disconnected from the Tom Cruise The Mummy. The Mummy was
Yes.
already a reboot from Dracula Untold.
Yes, yeah. So the Mummy tried to reset that. The Mummy is when they debuted the Dark Universe logo that they've only ever gotten to use once. um, and they introduced like Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll, and they were gonna make that Angelina Jolie Bride of Frankenstein movie, and I think it was Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man. They had is a tweet I like to revisit. It's they were like the Dark Universe begins, and it's a picture of all these actors just kind of standing around by like a chaise lounge. But yeah, so that never went anywhere. They kind of periodically will have people do Universal monster movies. Like they've had Lee Whannell do the Blumhouse ones, the Invisible Man and Wolfman, but those are not Dark Universe. I don't believe there are any Dark Universe movies that are actually moving forward, although I know Lee Cronin's doing a Mummy thing. But Universal is opening, maybe they did just open, but I think it's in May that they're opening a new theme park in Orlando that's called Epic Universe, I think, and it's one of the most misbegotten stupid ideas I've ever heard. But they have 5 lands, and it's all like different kind of IP shit, where it's like they have the Harry Potter land and the Nintendo land, but one of the lands is the Dark Universe, which is all of the horror monster things. So they're still pushing it. This is a thing that's happening in 2025, is a Dark Universe theme park land. And God bless them. It's never going to work, but I hope they keep trying forever.
So is Renfield, does Renfield count as one of these?
No.
I don't think so. No, I think that's another thing entirely.
Okay, because
I don't.
Okay.
I don't recall if Renfield is even Universal, because some of them are just not even.
Yeah, I couldn't say.
It is. But I remember because
okay.
people thought that Aaron Eckhart in I, Frankenstein was a Dark Universe movie, but that was made by someone else entirely. Someone deranged and delightful. But yeah, there's a lot of things that's like, is that it? And just kind of no.
Oh, the deranged, delightful gentleman who was responsible for I, Frankenstein was Kevin Grevioux, who was one of the architects of the Underworld franchise, which is something I thought of bringing today. But I thought better of it.
Didn't they have a final chapter? Or no, they had Blood Wars. Was it supposed to keep going?
I get the impression Blood Wars left the opportunity for further sequels. Unfortunately, Len Wiseman and Kate Beckinsale got divorced, and I think that kind of killed it.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
That will do it. And honestly, probably that I know nothing about Len Wiseman, but that feels like a good move for Kate Beckinsale.
I think she could do better, probably. That's it. That's cruel. I don't know either of them personally, but I don't know.
Anyway, do you have another? Do you have another franchise you want to throw out?
Internet person. I don't know. I didn't have any big ones. I had a few like sort of quick fire round entries. So like I got hung up on like as I say 2000s 2010s YA. So the Mortal Instruments.
Oh my god!
The Cassandra Clare thing that began as Draco Malfoy fanfic, I believe.
Did it?
I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently so. Like, she's one of the sort of great fanfic writer success stories who broke into the mainstream. That series got one movie deep, never got a sequel, and instead they pivoted to TV.
Yeah, they got that.
So,
what the fuck was that called? It was called something wild.
Shadow Hunters, something like that. It's very dumb.
I mean, just going off the Draco Malfoy thing, I think that there were supposed to be 5 Fantastic Beasts movies in the Harry Potter universe.
Well, that's a good point.
Totally okay with that dying a horrible death, because those movies they had some fun bits and they were bloated beyond belief. And I don't really know why that might have happened, why they stopped making them, other than perhaps the, cultural turn against J.K. Rowling, which...
Well, that has not stopped Warner Brothers, because they are full steam ahead on this TV reboot that feels like it will also not get to last the 7 seasons they're trying to make it.
I mean, how do you even do that with kids who are growing up? And like, it was a problem in the first Harry Potter movies. which also did that. We're going to split the last book into two, just like
Hmm.
Twilight did. And, it's just a stupid move, I think, because it
Mm.
allows for a lot more bloat than is necessary. But
Yeah. In hindsight, the Harry Potter films were an absolute unicorn when it came to casting.
Hmm.
they
Like
were, yeah.
it's miraculous that all those kids grew up as well-adjusted and photogenic as they did.
Hmm.
It's sometimes more photogenic than they were as a child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, look, I grew up with those movies. Daniel Radcliffe is like my boy. He's my
Hmm.
soulmate.
Mm.
But yeah, no.
Soulmate.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Love it.
But obviously, yeah, J.K. Rowling, vile, monstrous person.
Yeah.
Every time she trends on something, and
Mhm.
Mm.
I am I hate myself enough to go look at what you said. I'm like, oh, she's still on about it. She is pissed off that people exist, and
Yeah.
it is deeply upsetting. But god damn, that second Fantastic Beasts movie is one of the worst things I have ever seen in my entire life, and it
Yeah.
completely separate from the things that she does that needed to be set on fire and pushed into the ocean.
Yeah, it almost felt like there was no producer involved in either of these movies to say like, hey, maybe we don't need to pull on this thread in this plot. Like, maybe simplify it just a tiny bit where they're not 7,000 characters that you have to keep track of and that you don't already care about based on the universe that you know. I
And potentially, push back against the idea that the heroes are trying to make sure that World War II happens.
yeah.
Oh, I don't
God.
remember that specifically. I pushed that out of my brain.
I think that might have been the third film. I don't know. I didn't watch them.
Oh yeah, uh, I couldn't do it. I Cameroned my way out of that one.
Yeah, I rightly so.
Thank you. But yeah,
Yeah.
since we're doing a little bit more rapid fire, I will throw one out too, and then we can bounce back to you, Andrew. I do think that the planned Exorcist Believer trilogy was rightfully ripped out of David Gordon Green's hands.
God.
Oh yeah,
Should never have been given to David Gordon Green.
I
I don't know what
completely agree.
what he's doing with his career. It's sad.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got no great love for The Exorcist in the first place, but I bounced so hard off his Halloween films,
Ooh,
so I'm
yeah.
not sorry about that. Yeah, Halloween Ends is one of the more infuriating experiences I've had in the theater in the last 5 years.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you. Although I was at least buoyed by obviously we as a culture have rejected Corey Cunningham like a bad skin graft, but his hair was beautiful, so I was happy to look at it at least. Andrew, do you have other ones, other franchises?
The only other one that sort of jumps out at me that I've got written down is Ender's Game.
Oh
Mm.
Um,
yeah.
Were they planning a sequel for that? Or, I mean, I know there's
I
a sequel book.
Yeah, I don't know if there were sequels planned. I'm just sort of going off the basis that there were. There are already sequels out there in the world, and I assume anything that came out that starred Asa Butterfield in 2013
Yeah.
and Harrison Ford was probably angling for franchise status. I don't know. I saw this and it seemed absurdly expensive for what it
Yeah.
was. Like the volume of CGI, like particle effects flying at the screen that I saw there, and I think it was 2013.
That sounds
Something
Just
like
right.
seemed,
that. Yeah.
yeah, like that's a wild like investment to have made on a even then 30-year-old property, Hugo Award winning, but what does that matter to sort of like tweens in like the 2010s? And especially like Orson Scott Card like chalk him up with right alongside J.K.
J.K.
Rowling in
Rowling,
terms of like
sure.
authors who are well cancelled.
Hmm.
Yeah. Although,
Um,
does he have a
so
Twitter account? Because like I feel like I don't hear from Orson Scott Card, and I'm happy about that.
Even
I
alive? I
he
have no
he
idea.
definitely has a Quora account that I've
Oh.
seen him. I
See,
when I was active on Quora several years ago, like he cropped up on my feed often.
oh,
But I don't know if that's still the case.
that's
But
kind of
he was
hilarious.
he was most certainly active there. Yeah.
Okay, good
Interesting.
to know. Um, But yeah, no, Ender's Game on the page is a very weird series in terms of just continuity and where the characters go and what the timeline's like. So it makes sense that they couldn't YA franchiseify that whole thing. Like the Speaker for the Dead movie wasn't going to do very well.
Oh, probably, yeah. Like it's the same dilemma that Dune faces. Like, if we're gonna make this a property, like we're gonna have to confront at some point to how weird it's gonna get
Yeah.
down the line.
I don't feel like I needed a sequel to the Ender's Game as a book or a movie. I think it's a pretty great standalone book. And I never read the others, so I don't know if they're also great, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Speaker for the Dead went over my head as a kid. I don't know if I would find that to be different as an adult. I did he did like a side-by-side book about the little kid Bean called Ender's Shadow that I liked back as a kid.
Interesting.
I haven't read it.
Yeah, it was. I remember liking it, but again, I was a child, so I will not necessarily full-throatedly support that. But in terms of one more quick one to throw out, I have been enjoying watching Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon kind of trip on its own face, and so I'm excited for. I think we're just not getting any more of those, but if he keeps trying, that would be also fun for me to watch because it's never going to be as big as he wants it to be.
Yeah, I'm not a Zack Snyder fan, so I also enjoy watching him fail. But it's kind of cruel of me, but I've just never been a fan.
I don't know. I'm gonna perhaps like jump the gun on this. One of the franchises that I said I did want to see more of was actually the Snyderverse.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, like,
well,
I am perhaps like putting myself out on a limb here, but I thought that the plan, like, I didn't necessarily like. I didn't love Batman v Superman. I thought the Snyder cut of Justice League was okay. Mostly, I just think like if you're gonna make these sort of grand, like long form plans for a series of epic superhero movies, like commit to the bit, you know? Like
Yeah.
see it through to its conclusion rather than rebooting every time one of them slightly underperforms.
well, they try. I mean, they've been trying to keep it go. They've been propping it up on stilts for a long time, and I feel like this Superman thing is the one like big kind of reset button they've slammed, and everything else was just dying in front of us.
Yeah, like, but it was like a death of a thousand cuts. I feel, yeah, it was just bringing in sort of multiverse shit, and we don't necessarily need to relitigate the last 10 years of uh, Warner Brothers executive meddling right here, right now. But I do know that there's stuff online about the Snyder cuts, like the plans they had for the other two movies in that series that would hypothetically have been made. And I don't know, like there was a vision at some point that wasn't just like corporate strategy.
Okay, I'm happy for you, and I support your desires. I would not go see those movies. I didn't see the Snyder cut of Justice League. I was done with Justice. I'm done with those fools. I think I do. I'm curious as hell to see how this new Superman movie is gonna do, or I guess whatever the next thing after it, how that's gonna do. Because I feel like they're gonna just do the exact same thing where they will instantly crash and burn with this new version of the franchise.
I don't think there's a way. I don't think there is a way through for superhero movies at this point.
Yeah.
I think like regardless of what direction, what tone they strike, the only way at this point is down on the graph.
I agree. I think they need to give it a solid 10 years before trying to do another superhero franchise. Like, let it get out of the system, the cultural system. Yeah.
And I guess to conclude the ones that shouldn't have kept going, I do have two Marvel ones. I wanted to point to end credit scenes that are absolutely never going anywhere, and I'm totally fine with that.
Oh, sure.
The end credits, post credits thing of Eternals where Harry Styles shows up as Thanos' brother. Don't need that.
Nope. Do not need that. Agreed.
And then again, regardless of oh fuck, his name flew out of my brain. The guy who plays Kang. Jonathan Majors, regardless of his personal indiscretions. The Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania post-credit sequence where there's like 8,000 Kangs and they're all just like shouting. Don't need that. I'm very happy that they have stepped away from whatever the fuck that was gonna be.
Ant-Man is an example of the sequel being drastically worse. And if there was a third, is there a third Ant-Man? I don't think there is.
No. There is. So
that's Quantumania. Yeah.
Oh, Quantumania is the third. Okay, then I did see all three of them. Oh God.
Yeah. No. They could have stopped on that one too. But we'll close out this episode on a positive note. Things that should keep going. Andrew, you already threw out the Snyderverse, but Cameron, you implied you might actually have a couple to smack around here.
Well, it's more than they should keep going. It's that I feel like they should have kept going 10 years ago.
Of course.
The one, so maybe I'll start with the one that's perhaps less controversial.
You build up the controversy.
I don't know if it's that controversial. That sounds more interesting than it is. But I would have really loved to see David Fincher finish the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo Millennium series.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I thought so. I like the Swedish versions of those three movies. And
Same.
Yeah, they're fine. I don't think they're quite as moody and evocative as anything David Fincher does. And David Fincher has his misses, but in general, I really like him as a director, and certainly as his aesthetic is kind of right up my alley. So I would have loved to see the second two in the actual Stieg Larsson trilogy done by him. And I don't totally know why it wasn't. I think at one point Fincher did an interview that I remember thinking like it was going to be slightly different from the book because the second book is a little bit of a slog and a bit of a turn away from the tone of the first. It's sort of more Lisbeth Salander's like suddenly a spy kind of James Bondy sort of thing, rather than this like mysterious world set on an island that somebody disappeared. And maybe he wasn't quite as interested, but he did say at one point that there was going to be a sequel, and I was excited about that, and then it never happened. I know that they made The Girl in the Spider Web, and it was with Claire Foy and a different director, and that, again, is not by the original author. It's just based on a work that he had started, I believe. So I would have loved to see that because I did really enjoy those books. And I love Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is so the Golden Compass and His Dark Materials world.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I thought that movie was horrible. I like the books a lot. And what I would have just really liked to see somebody, maybe a different director, take on the reins of the second one the way that they change directors for the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, when Alfonso Cuarón was like, let me take care of this for you.
I would have loved that because I do think the second book is great. And then the third book in that series is so bonkers that watching anybody try to tackle that outside of maybe like Terry Gilliam. I don't even know if somebody
give it
that
to
crazy.
Ken Russell. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
Alejandro Jodorowsky.
I would have loved to see anybody do that. Just to, I know maybe that's me being a masochist, but I think the problem with that movie was that it had too many big name stars that required a lot of screen time. And the result was just a very poorly paced slog.
So I need to call myself out here because I actually haven't read the His Dark Materials trilogy. The only Philip Pullman I've read is The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ from many years later.
Okay.
You love to explore authors' much lesser known works. That's fun.
Apparently, yeah. But I saw The Golden Compass when it came out, and I remember thinking at the time, even as someone who's not read the books, this feels like a bastardized adaptation. You can just sort of the tells are there.
Yeah, I think they got a lot of pushback in the process of making it against the whole anti-religion message that the whole trilogy has. So I think
Hmm.
they kind of played that down and it wasn't as
Yeah.
integral a part of the story. And that kind of then led to the soul of the story, pun intended, being sucked out.
I remember thinking at the time that it's wild that The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and The Golden Compass are coming out around the same time,
Hmm.
and they're being pitched to the same audience.
Oh
That seems
yeah.
like like an example of the sort of Hollywood machine sort of flattening everything out, just
Yeah.
like exemplified.
I mean, speaking of things that never got finished, I don't think they finished the Narnia series, did they?
No, certainly
No,
not.
no.
But like
Yeah.
they made more of those movies than you think they did.
Yeah.
But they all kind of felt like reboots almost, even though some of them had the same characters. That it was a very lumpy franchise to begin with.
And then
Oh yeah.
the other one that I've really loved to just see go further, and maybe it still will, but I sort of doubt it, is the more recent Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I hadn't
I
thought of that, but you're right. Yeah, I'm
loved that
sorry that
movie.
flopped. That
Me
was such
too.
a that was such a nice surprise.
It was so goofy and fun, and like I was really hoping they would go further with that. Nope, doesn't seem like they are. So
Well, yeah,
great.
America slash the world said, "This is fine, no thank you." It just didn't make
Yeah.
enough. It's simply dumb commerce affecting what we could have.
Mm,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. Oh, also back to the Golden Compass thing. We missed out
Yeah.
sorely on not getting Rob Marshall's The Amber Spyglass. Um,
God, don't get me started on Rob Marshall.
okay,
No,
I
thank
won't.
you.
Not just yet. We got other things to talk about. Like Andrew, do you have any ones that you feel like needed to keep going?
I have two.
Okay.
Um, they are not like Cameron. You were saying like series that would have been good to continue 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I have a couple that would have been good to continue 50 years ago.
Okay,
Ooh.
Um,
great. Great.
so one that I was just sort of canvassing ideas for this episode, and one that just jumped out at me actually was the Lone Wolf and Cub series from the early 70s in Japan. This was based on a very influential and highly acclaimed manga by Kazuo Koike. Um, it concerns a samurai who is the executioner for his daimyo. He gets framed for his lord's murder and essentially has to sort of become a vagrant with his infant son, who he pushes around in a um, in a perambulator that's tricked out with all sorts of hidden weapons. And basically, he has to make his living as a kind of Ronin and sort of selling his services to other lowlives in the process of getting his revenge on the man who framed him, which is one of the Yagyu clan. As I say, like very popular long-running manga, and there were six films made of in I think about a 3 year period, all starring Tomosaburu Wakayama. Um, they're sort of hailed these days as being a highlight of the 70s grindhouse samurai wave,
Hmm.
in that they were actually really artful while also being like really grindhousey and violent and full of sex and blood. They only covered a certain chunk of the manga. They got up to the films are fairly episodic. Most of them involve the samurai and his son getting into sort of local scrapes and local conflicts and um, falling in with various local colorful characters. But there is a sort of ongoing spine throughout the whole series where they're hunting for this arch enemy, and they never get him. They never actually finish
Oh.
off this Yagyu warlord. The final film in the series, the sixth, is he gets away, he runs away, and they never followed up on that. So
Oh.
I kind of wish like we could get a time machine back to the 70s where they followed up on that series and saw it through to its conclusion, because those are really cool movies. Like if you're a fan of samurai films, they're well worth seeking out, even incomplete as they are.
Okay.
Also, it's worth noting they're probably best known in the West for the first two films being re-edited into the film Shogun Assassin, which was one of the video nasties in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And the second film in the series got the all-time great title, Shogun Assassin 2: Lightning Swords of Death.
Yeah, that is a good title.
If I was doing the greatest 5 titles ever episode over again, that would be one of my picks. I missed out on that.
Oh yeah, that's an iconic one. But so you said you had another franchise too, right?
I had one other, yes. And this is, are either of you familiar with the 1970 sci-fi film Colossus: The Forbidden Project?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so another kind of cult classic, American film this time, about a supercomputer who kind of takes over the world's nuclear arsenal and essentially declares itself world dictator. And that's how the film ends. Like, it's a very bleak 70s sort of ending. Spoiler alert for anyone who's not seen Colossus: The Forbidden Project, I guess. But the thing is, it was based on a novel. It was based on a 1966 novel by Dennis Feltham Jones. And that novel had 2 sequels, which go absolutely hog wild, like Martians start showing up, giant ants start showing up. And I really wanted to see like the follow-up to that movie that started introducing all these absolutely wacky elements, because the film that exists now is fairly grounded, relatively speaking.
That feels to me like I'm always disappointed by the endings of movies about the birth of the Antichrist, because the Antichrist is born and then does nothing. Like, I want to see what the Antichrist gets up to. That's the interesting part of that story. And then, of course, the only movie like that got a sequel is The Omen, and they keep just blue-balling you on that Damien never actually does anything in that entire franchise.
Just occurred to me.
What?
The first 3 Left Behind movies.
Oh, the Kirk Cameron ones?
Yeah. Should those have been continued? Because those books get nuts.
I don't know. I mean, somebody would say yes, I'm certain.
Well, I'm not saying they would be good.
Yeah,
but
fair.
they would make for good riffing content.
Oh, absolutely.
On the subject of novels that had like quite a few novels and not as many films made, I really kind of liked the 2005 adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I could have done with some more of those. It wasn't the greatest, but like I like Mos Def in there. I love Martin Freeman. I could have done with more of those.
Martin Freeman's an excellent choice for Arthur Dent.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
He really is. Yeah.
And I was thinking about that when I was putting together my notes for this, where I was like, I'm a little lukewarm on that movie. It's certainly, as someone who's very protective of the books, it just isn't. It's not right. But it's
I
not
kind of agree in
movie.
some ways. Yeah, but it wasn't terrible. So and I would have maybe liked to see what they did with the rest of it.
Yeah. And decent casting. Like, and Alan Rickman as Marvin, great casting. Yeah, that could have... I would have seen those movies. I probably would have felt the same way, but they could and maybe should have been allowed to do that.
I mean, it's hard when you have a book series that you absolutely love to approve of everything in the movie version. I think the only movie that I thought was a great adaptation of its book was The Martian, and that's there's only one of those, so it's rare.
Are you looking forward to Project Hail Mary next year?
I kind of am.
So am I. Like, I hate to say it, but it kind of sounds like I think Ryan Gosling is kind of the right pick.
I have no problems with that. I don't know what the rest of the movie is turning out to be like. I was gonna say the rest of the cast, but there's really not much of a cast other than
it's
Ryan
pretty much
Gosling.
just him, isn't it? Yeah,
like Castaway in space. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited about it.
Well, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to talk about something else. I was thinking about ones that should have continued, and most of the ones that I feel most strongly about are ones that were just one movie that should have kept going. But in terms of, I do have 2 franchises I want to touch on really quickly that either ended early or just aren't going to keep going probably. That these are my controversial picks. Like, I kind of want Kenneth Branagh to play Hercule Poirot until he dies. Like, I want all of the Hercule Poirot stories starring Kenneth Branagh, because especially like Death on the Nile, a bit overcooked. But Haunting in Venice, that was a fun movie, very atmospheric. He assembles these like really kooky casts, and he's very self-indulgent, but Hercule Poirot is very self-indulgent and should be. I think he appropriately plays him as a off-putting weirdo, which is how he's supposed to be. So I enjoy those.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not see Haunting in Venice, kind of based on that. I didn't really like Death on the Nile.
No, that movie's not great, but Haunting in Venice, pretty solid.
Okay, I will check that out, because I do love Hercule Poirot as a character. So, and I love Kenneth Branagh playing him. So,
regrettably, I've only seen Death on the Nile of those three.
Oh.
So, yeah, I have not got the best sample size for that series, but maybe I need to give them another chance.
Yeah, no, I want enough of those movies to fill the Nile. But yeah, and my other one...
Gal Gadot.
Mm-hmm. Gotta love her. We're just talking about all the people we don't want to talk about today.
Really?
But yeah, another young adult franchise that petered out more or less instantly. They tried to do the Harry Potter thing. They even got Chris Columbus to make the first Percy Jackson movie.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't think either of those movies is particularly good or iconic. But now, having seen the Disney Plus show, I'm like, let's just give it to those guys and let them finish it out, because this show is garbage. It is an example of the author stepping in to quote unquote save the franchise, and the amount of fealty to the original text that it needs to have is it crushes it. Even though I think Walker Scobell is excellent as Percy Jackson. I think he's a really good young actor, and I want him to be freed and allowed to do other things. But I would have watched those dumb Logan Lerman, Alexandra Daddario movies. Like, I watched all 5 or 6. I don't remember. I forget how many Percy Jackson books there are. I mean, there's like 5 in the original, and then there's like 20 more in other continuities or whatever. But the number one movie that I think needed to get the sequel that it was going to get, and for some reason hasn't, is Crazy Rich Asians.
I was thinking about that too. Totally.
Oh.
100%.
Yeah, because that movie was a delight. I think it was an exquisitely adapted. I think that's a very good adaptation, because that book is not very good.
Nope.
That book is the American Psycho of rom-coms, because it's just lists of fashion brands. And I'm talking about American Psycho, the novel. And it doesn't have an ending. The book doesn't have an ending. It's I hate the book, honestly. But the movie like really draws out the connection between her and Michelle Yeoh, and puts that mahjong scene, which not in the book. And it's a very satisfying movie, and I think it ended very, very well. But I would have loved to see them make a good version of the next 2 books in the trilogy.
Yeah, I haven't read the next 2 books in the trilogy. I'm looking at them right now, sitting on my bookshelf in my pile of I have not read this. And because the book isn't
don't let
great.
It stare at you too long.
Yeah, I didn't want to read them unless the movies were happening, because you're right, the movie was better. So
yeah, and honestly, I think it's probably a lot of the same issues of, I forget which franchise we talked about where the second book takes a left turn. Oh, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The second book, Constance Wu's character essentially vanishes from that book and doesn't have very much to do, so they would have had to do a lot of surgery to make the movie better. And then, of course, they did not want to pay the woman they were having do it enough, so that kind of collapsed. But I think those 2 movies could have been good.
I was, as the kids say, today years old when I realized Crazy Rich Asians was based on a book.
Yes.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day. That's why you listen to this show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioning Crazy Rich Asians made me realize that on our first topic of things that maybe don't need any more sequels, the Bridget Jones franchise.
Jesus
I feel
Christ.
like I am done with that, and maybe was done after the second of those movies, which
You
was
hit the
what,
edge of
20
reason.
years ago? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, thank you. I don't, especially sans Colin Firth. What are we even doing here? I don't understand. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Well,
Tim, Gavin, and I were going back and forth on the fourth Bridget Jones film on the February preview, I think it was. It, and we were saying like, well, like this doesn't even count as a theatrical release. I think it's something like the third biggest film of the year in the
oh
Oh
Anglosphere so
yeah.
my
far.
God. That's
It's
depressing.
making wild money. But yeah, I mean, look,
Really?
oh yeah, it's made over $100 million and
I
not
had no
even
idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
But I am someone I've seen the first three Bridget Jones movies. I don't have Peacock, so I haven't seen the fourth one. But the first Bridget Jones movie, I know I'm an outlier. That is a 1-star movie for me. I hated that movie so much.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree. We don't need more.
The books, I think the books, at least the first two books, were better. I did not read the third book. I did see the third movie, so I can't really speak to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, those first two, I also read them when I was like 17, and it was the perfect time to be reading them in my life. So maybe I'm lionizing them more than
Mhm.
they need to be, but I
No,
thought the
and
books were great. Yeah.
that's perfectly okay. You know, you connect to it, and you will always have that, and that's the thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you would disagree with yourself,
Yeah.
and you might not. But yeah, really quickly, I also think that I want that Alita Battle Angel sequel to happen.
Same. Yes.
I
I
th-
my whole thing with Alita Battle Angel is I I have that whole first film at 2.5 stars on Letterboxd. It will shoot up a star and a half if the films pay off, if they got the sequels made they wanted to.
yeah, if they get to
Interesting.
go to Elysium or whatever the hell was going
Yeah,
on there.
if they actually pay off the stuff that they set up in that first movie, like I'm all in.
I know, and I was totally surprised by how much of a delight I found Alita Battle Angel to be, because it's such a silly movie. But
I
very
read
good
the
time.
first volume of the manga back in high school, and that's as far as I got with it, and it captured that energy very, very
Ooh.
vividly for me. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear it. And really, really quick, things that do deserve sequels that have been sort of promised and not really come to be. I think Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon needs that sequel that they've been promising for 15 years. Pontypool needs a proper sequel and not the weird like crime movie Fantasia they made in 2019.
Edge of Tomorrow, I feel like, is kind of
Oh.
always being tossed out there as, yay, we're going to make a sequel at some point, and it hasn't happened. So,
Have you seen they're making an anime of that? They're
are
making
they?
an animated adaptation of the original book. All
Oh
You Need
yeah.
Is Kill.
Interesting.
Yeah, the trailer for that just came out the other week.
Huh, no, I
Okay,
didn't
Looks
see
pretty
that.
cool actually. Like it's quite visually appealing. Yeah.
Cool.
One I would float on this topic. I don't think we're getting any more Mad Max films.
Oh
Sad.
yeah, I don't see how that
Furiosa,
could happen.
when it came out, like I remember seeing Box Office Mojo when Furiosa was coming out. Like, oh my god, there's no good way to spin these numbers.
Yeah.
Like
I-
the wasteland is never happening, but we can always dream.
It's so sad. Like that, I think I've said on this podcast before, that was my favorite movie of 2024. Like, I was
Yeah,
in
yeah,
for Furiosa.
I'm pretty much right there with you. Yeah,
Yeah, that's depressing. I mean, George Miller is also very old
Yeah.
for
he's
what
not
it's
as
worth.
old as Ridley Scott. He's not as old as Francis Ford Coppola.
True.
Yeah.
Neither of those movie directors make films that are quite as kinetic and demanding, I think,
Yeah.
as the Mad
Yeah,
Max
true.
world.
I
But
actually just recently read Blood, Sweat, and Chrome.
Oh, that's a good book.
It's a good book, and like it does impress upon you just like how physical the making of Fury Road actually was.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, and real quick, I don't know if I necessarily need this sequel, but they keep promising to make it. And I'm like, just pull the trigger. They need to make the actual sequel to Cloverfield and not keep releasing these like Hellraiser like sequel movies where it's just like we had a script that was something else and we're gonna put Cloverfield in the title. And And then also, one last one, and this is a totally unpopular opinion, but that newest Resident Evil movie, Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City, that Johannes Roberts did, I thought that movie was pretty fun. It was the first of the Resident Evil movies that tried to be scary, in a real way, and they had a little sequel tag that is not coming to fruition because they threw that away. They made a Netflix show that also didn't go anywhere, and now they have Zach Kreger from Barbarian making a new whatever that's going to be, and could very well be good. But I could have handled a sequel to Welcome to Raccoon City.
I keep meaning to get around to Raccoon City. Like I would watch that. I just haven't made the time for it.
It was I was very surprised by it. I was kind of dragging my feet because my boyfriend Ben and I, we were doing a Resident Evil marathon, and this one we watched like a year after finishing the Mila Jovovich ones, and I was very pleasantly surprised. It's not like a masterpiece, but I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Anyway, is can we put a pin in that topic, or is there any other franchises that are floating around you want to bring into the arena before we go?
Oh man, I'm wondering. Like, should I put a pin in it? Like, this is very esoteric. The other one that was just floating around my head to bring up on this topic before we can put it to bed is The Sword of Doom from 1966. Another samurai film.
Okay.
Oh, we get it. You like samurai movies.
Apparently so. So, like, this is a coincidence. Like, it's... But yeah, it was based on a serialized novel from the early 20th century called Great Bodhisattva Pass.
Ooh.
Originally, apparently supposed to be turned into a series of films. The film that exists now is a very dark, very nihilistic, black and white, sort of Kurosawa adjacent film, except Kurosawa would never make anything this as anti-human as this film. It's a very thorny, unpleasant film. It literally ends with the main character mid sword slash, like screaming in rage at the screen. And the sort of legend of the film is originally it was supposed to be a sequel hook. We're supposed to find out what happened next. But that never happened, and so that's kind of the legend of this film is it ended with this freeze frame of Tatsuya Nakadai slicing towards the frame, and it's this very bleak, haunting image that's persisted for the last half century.
I mean, that sounds like a good place to leave it, but it does sound like we also are missing out on Sword of Doom 2 Lightning Fingers, or whatever they were going to call it over here.
So on the topic of samurais, once upon a time, probably 10 or 12 years ago, Quentin Tarantino said he was going to make a third Kill Bill, and then he really didn't do that at all. I would have liked to see that, but it just occurred to me, so I don't have a whole lot more to say about it.
I actually would not hate the idea of a legacy sequel to Kill Bill, specifically because of the conversation that Uma Thurman has with the kid after she kills her mom.
It sets it up, absolutely. So that I could see that happening if he ever makes a movie again, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he kind of scrapped the one that he was working on, so maybe, we'll see what that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yes, that. Unlike these franchises, we will be finishing this podcast episode. But before we go, I'd like to hear where our audiences can find you out in the big bad world of the internet. Cameron, I hear you have a specific podcast episode you want to plug.
I do have a plug for my other podcast, it's called Stoneybrook Reunion, the Babysitters Club Book Club. And the reason that I am plugging this particular episode is Tim, everybody's favorite film critic, is on the episode that released on Thursday. So it was an episode about book 25, and the podcast is three middle-aged women, myself and two of my friends, revisiting this seminal book series from our youth in all ways. So, the Netflix series, the graphic novels, the original series. So we do one book at a time, and Tim has joined us twice now. The first was to offer his expertise on Disney World, and the second is because he is a fellow cat owner, and this most recent book centered around a cat going missing. So if there's any overlap in that audience, give us a listen. Tim is a delightful guest to have. So again, it's called Stoneybrook Reunion, the Babysitters Club Book Club, wherever you get your podcasts.
Excellent. There's nothing I want more than to hear Tim talk about the Babysitters Club.
I mean, it is pretty funny because he has zero. Well, no, he did say that he read one book when he was a kid, I think. But other than that, he has zero basis of understanding of this world, and it's great.
I'm just now remembering I listened to the Disney World episode that Tim was on, and I've only just put it together now that you were one of the voices on that episode.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Cameron.
No, it's okay. Why would you put that together?
Neurons connecting in my head right now.
That is me. Before I was on this podcast, we started that one. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. And what about you, Andrew? Where can people find you?
You can find me at anmilne.com. I've got my fingers in a few pies these days. I'm also on Letterboxd quite a lot. The one thing that I wanted to give a shout out to on this episode, a project that I've recently just restarted. Another friend of the show, Dan Stalcup, he has a site of his own called thegoodsreviews.com, where I have been reviewing episode by episode the TV show Gangs of London, which has just had its third season come out. The first of my write-ups is already online. The second of the third season should be online by the time this episode drops. So I go way overboard in like citing my sources on these. Like I get way too deep into the rabbit holes, but it's a fun time if you like gangster shows.
Cool.
Excellent. And as always, you can find more episodes of this show and others, including Bride of Alternate Ending, on alternateending.com. Speaking of, that is going to be the next episode you get in your feed after this. Tim and I are kicking off the second quarter of the year. The topic we'll be discussing is fast zombies and or rage virus, if you don't count them as zombies, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm so excited. At the time of recording, the Patreon poll for what movie we'll be discussing has not been settled just yet. But I can't wait to watch whatever y'all are going to make us watch. And if you want the opportunity to vote in such polls, you can join the Alternate Ending Patreon. Link for that should be in the show notes. You can also find it on the website. I highly recommend it. Please help support us, keep the lights on here, and also get some cool perks from that. But until next time, when we're talking about some strain of fast zombies, bye-bye!